Welcome to Blueprint IoT. In this video we will find out how to flash Raspberry Pi OS on our SD card using Balena Etcher. The major difference between Balena Etcher and Raspberry Pi's own software to do this is that the Raspberry Pi's own software is actually able to download the file, the operating system file, within the process of flashing it. Balena Etcher, meanwhile, will only provide you the option to select the file that was previously downloaded. Personally, I prefer this because it's more direct for me, because I have downloaded the file anyway. Nevertheless, Raspberry Pi software will also allow you to select the file, but Balena Etcher is just more straightforward for me. Anyway, there will be a separate video about how to do the whole process with the Raspberry Pi's own software. But since we're using Balena Etcher, we will just go ahead and download the operating system file. So we go for the Raspberry Pi website and we will just hit the burger menu, go to software, and there we will find the download of the actual Raspberry Pi OS imager, they call it. That would be the same as the Balena Etcher, which we apparently don't want to download. So we will scroll down furthermore, and here we have the section manually install operating system image. So we will just hit this button, and there we find all the different versions of the operating system that are available. There's actually a 32-bit version and further down a 64-bit version. Since I'm going to use the Raspberry Pi 4, so I will use the 64-bit version. There's the light version and the full version. I will just go for the full version. You can see it's a bit bigger, but that's fine with me. So we'll hit download, and we will see here roughly 5 minutes, of course depending on your internet speed. For the SD card, or to be more precise, micro SD card, I'm using a SanDisk Ultra, providing 16 GB, and this one is a bit of a faster one. That's super important because the speed of the SD card will actually influence your speed you will experience throughout the whole system. So boot up time, saving files, opening files, all of this stuff will be much quicker in case you have a fast SD card. Of course, there are better ones out there for more money, which I would recommend if you're going to use your Pi as a media center or day-to-day computer. In my case, I just want to have kind of a medium performance, so please just don't go ahead and buy any SD card out there. Also, the time we need to flash the image onto the SD card is actually influenced by the speed of the card. There will be a separate video about different type of SD cards, because there's always the concern of reliability. How long will it last? Will it die within a couple of months? So there are different types of high endurance, ultra high endurance, and so on and so forth. So I will dive into this topic more deeply in a different video. While the file is still in download, we will just go over to Balena Etcher, where we can get familiar with the interface. First of all, we have to select the file which we want to flash, and then we have to select the target, and finally we have to flash it. There's also the option to clone a device, and that's actually super useful, because if you have a Raspberry Pi instance that's already completely installed, you know, all your applications are installed, all your files are there, and you just want to have another device like this, if you think about smart home devices or something like this, you can just insert two SD cards at the same time. So yes, you will need an additional adapter to insert a micro SD card into your computer, and then you can just go ahead and select one SD card and clone it to another one. I will do a separate video about this process as well, because I think that's super cool. Our download is completed. I inserted the micro SD card via an SD card adapter, and we will just go ahead with flash from file. We will select the actual file. The second step is to select the target, and that's where it gets a bit interesting. Normally there should be only an external device visible. You can see this with the location or also with the size normally. And the name is also indicating I'm on a MacBook, so Apple SDXC Reader Media. So this is indicating that this device is plugged into the SD card slot. And by the way, it's quite common that the slots itself or the adapters from microSD to SD card are not working properly. So in case it's not showing up here, make sure that it's all clean and maybe swap the adapter. It could happen that you see more devices here in case you have some external drives plugged in. Also, we can see here my internal devices in case we hit the show more button. So make sure to not accidentally erase your whole hard drive or your whole external media drive or whatever. Normally there are warnings like system drive and log or source drive available, so you cannot make this mistake with the current Balena etcher. But anyway, if you have a big media drive with all your pictures or whatever attached, make sure that you check the size and the name to select the right device. So we go ahead with our SD card and finally we just hit flash. Now we have to insert our passcode because this is actually erasing this whole device, so that's fine. And here we go, we can see the image itself has 4.4 gigabyte roughly. We are flashing this file to this target. We see what's going on here. We see the estimated time of arrival. So the actual operating system file gets flashed to the SD card. So it's not like you're saving a file. It's more like you're burning the file into the SD card so that this will appear basically as this old Windows installation CD you may know from the old times. So as soon as you insert this SD card or micro SD card later into the Pi, it will just naturally recognize it as an operating system and will boot from this device, and you can go straight ahead with configuring all the settings. After the image is flashed onto the SD card, there will be a validating process to check that the flashing was successful, and you can see the actual flashing just started. It is possible that you will have some failure on the way. Don't worry, you can just try again, and normally at the second try it will run through without problem. So this is not necessarily any kind of indicator that your SD card is damaged or whatever. It just occurs that sometimes there is some kind of failure and you just have to redo it. Alright, we are almost done, and I just want to mention one more time that the speed of this whole process is depending heavily on the speed of your micro SD card itself. So flashing is about to be complete, so we will immediately go into validating in a second. So this is just checking everything and is normally like a fraction of the time of the flashing itself. You also have the option to skip this process, but I would really recommend you to take this time. It's only like half a minute or something like this, and then you can be sure that everything is done nicely and you're not wondering later on why the Raspberry Pi is not booting properly or whatever. Alright, we are done. Flash complete, one successful target, so everything went smoothly. So this whole process took only a couple of minutes, of course depending on the speed of your SD card, depending on the internet speed for downloading the actual file, but this went all super smooth and was no problem at all. I can now just go ahead and insert the micro SD card into the Raspberry Pi and get started there. But that's something for the next video, so make sure to be subscribed, give a thumbs up if the video was helpful to you, and see you around with more content like this.